This video is especially for kids ages 12 to 17 because you are the hardest hit by parent infidelity. Why is that? Because you are old enough to understand what's going on, but you are too young to leave. You're still dependent on your parents financially, emotionally, probably logistically. You still need them to drive you to school, maybe to soccer practice. You're also old enough to believe that you may be able to do something to change the situation. So, this video and the next video I'll do are both for you. Hi everyone, my name is Melissa. I'm a writer. I research and write extensively on the effects of parent infidelity in the kids. If you would like to support kids coping with parent infidelity, please hit like to this video, subscribe to this channel so that we can help more people understand the cycle of infidelity in families. I'm also hoping to create some kind of support group for kids dealing with parent infidelity, and I would love your input as to what would be helpful for you. Please drop me a comment below, or if you'd like to connect individually, I will leave my email down below, and you can either write me directly or I'd be happy to set up a time to talk with you. Thank you. Okay, so let's get into it. The goal of this video is to help you feel better about what's going on with your parents and what's going on with your family without actually having to confront your parents about the affair. Because as I mentioned in this video, confronting your parents is not always safe. It's not always the right thing to do. It can be, but it's not always. In the next video, I'll talk about some strategies for how to confront your parents when you're still in your parents' home and you're going to need to be there for a while. In this video, we'll cover 3 strategies to feel better about parent infidelity without having to talk to your parents. The first is to understand the process of coping with betrayal. The second is to reach out to someone that you trust. And the third is probably the most important, and it's how to stop ruminating about your parents' affair, like how to stop thinking about it over and over, because that is actually what causes you a lot of pain. So first, knowing the process of coping with betrayal. One of the first things you may feel is confusion, serious confusion. And it may lead to some sort of compulsive fact-finding, like wanting to look at your parents' phones, wanting to follow them, wanting to listen in on their conversations. All of this is super normal because you're trying to figure out what's going on. Feelings, you're going to have a lot of feelings, and they may not always be the ones that you expect or that everybody talks about. So when somebody brings up betrayal or infidelity, obviously people talk a lot about anger. You may well feel angry towards your cheating parent, even towards your betrayed parent. And this surprises some kids and some families, but often kids are just angry at the whole situation and feel that both parents are involved and both parents are somewhat to blame. So it's normal to feel that way. Depending on who the affair partner is, if it's somebody that you know, you may be super angry at them. You may be confused about what's right and wrong. Like you thought you knew what the deal was, and now you're completely questioning that. You may feel like you need to side with one parent against the other parent, which is hard, but also completely normal. You may feel negatively about committed relationships or marriage. I mean, sad, hurt, heartbroken, all of these super normal feelings. You may feel guilty, like it was somewhat your fault. It's not, but you may feel that way anyway, and that may cause you to feel like you have to be a mediator between your parents, or that you can somehow help if you get in between and act like some kind of relationship counselor. The other thing is, you may feel relieved. It may be that your parents have had a tough relationship for a long time, and this affair, this infidelity, is offering one of them an escape hatch that they've needed for a long time. So again, however you feel, it's okay. 2 other things you need to know about coping with parent infidelity as a kid. 1, you may feel very isolated, like you're alone, like you're the only kid in the world going through this. You're not. You're definitely not. The research is very clear that up to 40% of kids know that their parents are cheating. And there are loads of kids going through this around the world. So just know that you're not alone. If you're looking to reach out in a very anonymous way, I run a group on Reddit that is completely anonymous. You can share your specific situation and I'll respond. And you'll also have the benefit of getting the responses of other people in the group. The second thing that you need to know is that culturally, it's not understood or it's not talked about how parent infidelity affects kids, and even largely going broader than that, families and communities. Most of the focus is on the couple, understandably in some ways, because that is where the pain is and the issues lie. However, infidelity is something that affects the broader family, community, way more than is talked about in day-to-day life. Moving on to the next coping strategy for how to deal with your parents' infidelity without confronting them is reaching out to somebody you trust. As I said before, parent infidelity can feel very isolating. It's going to be helpful to you to reach out to a friend or another adult, somebody that you feel you can confide in, so that both help you feel not alone and to help you work through what some solutions are. And we'll get to this again in the next video about confrontation to help you talk through whether confrontation is the right thing for you. The third coping strategy for parent infidelity when you don't want to confront your parents is to learn how to stop ruminating. So what is ruminating? Rumination can be defined as recurring or intrusive thoughts that disrupt your life. So you may be thinking about your parents' affair a lot, but when it starts to interrupt the rest of your life, that's when you need to start thinking about some strategies to cope with it. There is actually specific research on rumination and parent infidelity that shows that the more that you ruminate on your parents cheating, unsurprisingly, the less happy you are, and you are more susceptible to physical health ailments. It can also damage your relationship with your parents, both in the present and moving into the future. But the good news about rumination is that it's entirely within your control. You don't have to talk to your parents about the affair. Your parents' relationship doesn't have to change. It's all something that you do within yourself. First step to managing rumination, to managing these intrusive thoughts, is to recognize what you think about most and when. So this is about noticing your triggers. So there are certain scenarios that make you ruminate, certain times of day, certain locations. This also includes, are there certain scenarios that you go over and over again in your head, like yelling at your dad's lover or packing up your bags and moving out? Just at this point, start to notice what those triggers are and what those recurring thoughts are. Writing them down in a journal is also a great way to get them very specific and get them out of your head. The second strategy is to remove labels and get rid of generalizations. So what do I mean by that? Think of the difference in saying, my dad is a cheater versus my dad cheated. The first is a characterization, the second is a behavior. Characterizations tend to shut your brain down, whereas behaviors allow for more options. Are there times, for example, when your dad does not cheat? Maybe when he does what he says he will do, like for example, maybe he takes you to school on time, or maybe he completes his projects at work on time, or never fails to buy you a birthday gift. Maybe there are times when he's not a cheater, when he doesn't cheat. This also includes statements like, my mother never loved him. Question those thoughts. Are you sure? Your parents had a whole relationship before you came along, most likely. How do you know that your mom loves your dad or does not? Are there ever things that she does that demonstrates that she does love him? Another way to work with this is to force yourself to name 2 positives for every negative. For example, dad cheated on mom, and he's great at dominoes, and he takes good care of the dog. Okay, so I know what you're thinking. Like, this is just steamrolling over bad behavior is what it's doing, Melissa. But I don't mean it that way. I don't mean to gloss over behavior or to pretend that like everything's awesome, because I know that it's not. There are times when it's going to feel forced to do this and when it's just going to take some practice and it may feel like a stretch. But the goal is not to erase bad behavior. The goal is to keep your brain from spiraling into these negative thoughts and to recognize that not everything is bad all the time. No person is bad all the time. Think of it as finding the gray in the situation as opposed to defining everything and every person in black or white, either or terms. Okay, next strategy. Figure out what you can actually control. As I mentioned in my last video, often kids coping with parent infidelity have much less control than they think that they do, but they want much more control than they actually have. So one strategy for this is to do what's called a locus of control exercise. I will leave a link below. And this is going to help you figure out what you have control over in your family, what you don't have control over in your family, and some areas where you may have influence. And the reason this is important is that sometimes kids of infidelity, when they feel like they have no control over their parents' marriage or what's going to happen with their parents, they feel like they have no control over anything. It sort of spirals from not having control over parents to not having control over anything. And you need to remind yourself that that's not true. Remind yourself of all the things you do have control over, even if it's little things like what you eat for breakfast or which friends you go to the movies with. It's important to remember that you do have control over some parts of your own life. The second equally important part of this is to remember that you're not going to be a kid forever, that you are eventually going to be an adult and you are going to have control over your own life and your own relationships. And so the more practice that you get now, realizing and taking note of the things that you can control and the decisions that you can make, the easier time you're going to have as an adult making those decisions for yourself. Next up, get clear on how ruminating benefits you. Wait, what? Yes, it's true. Rumination does have its benefits. Maybe you feel like the affair is somehow your fault, so thinking about it all the time is a way to punish yourself. Or maybe you feel like your whole family is falling apart, and if you can just keep thinking about the infidelity, you'll figure out a way to save everyone. Often rumination is a way to feel like you have some control over a situation where you don't really have any control, and you feel helpless. One of the reasons that I ruminated so much as a kid, dealing with my own parents' infidelity, was that when the affair came to light, my whole family just scattered and I missed everyone. So I felt like if I could just keep thinking about it, then I would feel less alone. I'd feel closer to the people that I missed. Okay, final tip to stop ruminating. Do not let yourself think without taking action. So how do we do this? Rather than asking yourself, why did this affair happen? Ask yourself, what is one thing I can do right now to feel better about the situation? So this could take a few different forms. This could mean doing something kind for someone else, like making cookies for your sister or walking the dog so your mom doesn't have to. It could also mean doing something kind to yourself, for yourself. Another way to look at this is to do the opposite of what you're angry about. So what do I mean by that? If you're angry about all the lying that you feel like is going on at your house, that your parents are lying to each other, or that your cheating parent is lying to your betrayed parent, look for one way to be truthful in your own life. So, or another way to look at that is if your parents are treating each other poorly, look at one way that you can treat someone else well. Rather than replaying your parents' behavior, you are going to do the opposite and actively look for ways to act differently from them. And this will likely not affect your parents' affair at all, but it will help you create the life that you want for yourself, both now, as a kid, as a teen, and again, it's going to help you for that day when you are sooner or later going to be an adult and move out of your parents' house. Which at the end of the day is really what this is all about. It's about creating the life that you want for yourself, regardless of what's going on with your parents and your parents' choices. You're not going to be a kid forever. You just need to figure out how to survive the pain that you're going through right now until you're old enough to make different choices. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this content was helpful. If it was, please like this video and drop me a comment as to some other content that you'd like to see. As I said, the next video will be specifically about confronting parents' affairs for kids ages 12 to 17. Until then, just remember, you're not alone.